at this moment. It's been another very stressful setup because I do it so seldom, but it's good to see you all here. Can you guys hear me? Hello. Hi, Stephanie. Good to see you here. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Susie. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Loris. I see Steph is there. It's strange, on my phone the Fox is in reverse and on YouTube it's not. It's kind of weird. So I guess it's not quite what you see is what you get. Hi Janae, hi Debbie McClellan. Hi Gary from Blackpool, UK, good evening. Lady Jane, is it Git from Sweden? Hello. Matt from Great Britain. Scorp, Sakura Girl, Happy New Year. It doesn't really feel like it's relevant to say that anymore, is it? Happy New Year. Is it a Happy New Year? Are people feeling happy? Have you guys heard about Larry King? That Larry King passed away just a couple of days ago. In fact, I was going to do a episode on the Ramseys going on Larry King, and that was scheduled for, it's probably the episode after the next one, or actually it's about 2 episodes from now. So I've always thought Larry King's an excellent host, and I don't know, just a really good interviewer. So Marty Furlong from Newfoundland, Canada. Marty, it's extremely hot and humid and kind of unpleasantly sweaty hot here. I imagine it's quite cold there. Scott Marshall from Florida. Laura says very sad. Yeah, I agree. I must say, when I heard that he was in hospital, I wondered whether he was going to make it out again. It seems like when you go to hospital, it's a one-way trip. Simples Meerkat, I used to know your real name. I'm not quite sure what it is now, but hello. Oracles and Beyond, Jeep Girl, Anna Katz, Erin Anderson, Joni, hi from New York, hi there. Okay, so there are quite a few in already. What we're going to do in this episode is we're going to talk a little bit about the John Benet Ramsey case. We've been talking about it quite a lot the past 40-odd episodes. So we're going to just cover some of your questions and comments. That's not going to be the focus of the whole episode. We're also going to look at the Chris Watts case, but not for that long. It feels a little bit like flogging a dead horse at this point. We're going to go into Jodi Arias. I've kind of got a list of items that I want to deal with over here. Laurie Vallow and Alexa Sharkey. So we're going to kind of go into all of that stuff and just see how far we get to. I originally wanted to do an episode based on a script and then sort of take your questions on the side, but that's not really what these lives are about. These lives are about hearing from you guys, getting your thoughts, and in future I kind of want to do them where you can actually hear what you guys say. You know, I want to hear your voices. I want to see your expressions. I want to see your faces, and I'm sure others want to do that as well. So I'm slowly moving in that direction. I've just kind of got a lot on my plate. I've got so many audiobooks that I still need to complete that are kind of on the conveyor belt. So it's just trying to get to everything. That's a little bit difficult. Mummy is chilling. Hello. She says it's her first live. Yay. Ellen G from, is it Penticton, Canada? British Columbia, Canada. Okay. Matt says justice for Suzanne Morphew. Yeah. I must say that is a case that's, you know, if some of these cases are moving forward, Letitia Stork, Laurie Vallow, that case doesn't seem to be going anywhere, does it? I mean, we might be surprised, we might see what happens, but definitely is quite a tragic case. GJ, also from British Columbia, Pacific Rainforest. Firefly, I'm glad that you're here. Scott Marshall, do I think, well, this is going to catch me a little bit, I think. Do you think Jodi Arias and Christopher Watts have any similarities? I'd say that they're both very mendacious characters. They both don't kind of bat an eyelid when they say something that's not true. And I want to sort of put that ball in your court, and just a lot of the time in true crime we talk about that was a lie and people told a lie. And actually all of us tell lies. Some of them are small, harmless lies, but some of them are bigger lies. If you tell a lie, do you feel yourself blushing? Do you feel yourself being awkward? Do you feel, or can you do it? Is it second nature? And I must say, I've been shocked through the course of my life encountering certain people, including, I wouldn't say friends, but people I know, not even fairly well, but people that I know. And then you sort of discover that lying is a way of smoothing things over. It's very normal for them. Whereas for me, it's definitely anathema. What is it like for you guys? Are there any liars here? Hi from Alberta, Canada. That's Rachel Kropinski. Deanna Ludwig on the John Bonet case with you. I like that symbol you're using there. Joda Barter, new to your patron. Do you ever cover Delphi? Coming to you from Indiana, outside Chicago. Well, welcome, Joda. Am I saying your name right? Is it Joda? It's almost like Jodi, just Joda. It's funny, I've been asked a lot about Delphi. The answer is I've gone into the case a little bit. I've read a little bit about it. It doesn't grab me a lot, the case. I'm not terribly caught up in it. But obviously, if a lot of people are interested in it, you can twist my arm and I'll go into it. But at this point, I sort of have so much, and there's so much craziness and sort of interest in certain things that I can't sort of deal with everything. If true crime sort of calms down, then, like everything in true crime just sort of settles. There are quite a few cases that I'd love to dig into. One of them is from Canada, the Ken and Barbie murders. Homolka, that's a case I'd really like to get into. Eng V says, I think liars are despicable. I agree. Lying leads to the next thing, kind of thing. Chronic lying leads to the next thing. Sleepy Ninja, can't quite see what you're saying because it's behind a thing here. I hope your arm gets twisted. Yeah, I allow my patrons to twist my arm, and I often do polls and then just see what people want to do there. But things do change. For example, the last time I did a poll, I don't think I included Jodi Arias, and I think Jodi Arias is going to be on the agenda in February, and we'll get to in a second. So I just want to go through this in order. If you guys have got any questions, I'll try and, that's it, Carla Hamolka. I'll try and sort of keep tabs on what you guys are asking. We are going to get to the John Bonet Ramsey case. I first just want to put something on your sort of psychological desks that I've been thinking about, and that I think is quite interesting, because I always think, everyone else deals with true crime, and it's often quite a stereotype. Jeep Girl, thank you very much. Grateful for your books and that they're available on Kindle. Thanks a lot, Jeep Girl. They're available on Kindle, paperback, and some of them as audiobooks. And I personally think that the Kindle offers the best value. That's just what I think, especially if you buy them shortly after they've come out. You get a lot of insight very early on. That was the intention with the Chris Watts case. So this is what I want to share with you guys. I don't want to just be like a lot of the other true crime channels where you point fingers and you blame and you hate and I'm on this team or on that team. I want to look at it, let them speak for themselves, and then you bring it back to yourself, your community, your world, and you say, okay, how does this, what we're seeing in the Chris Watts case, what we saw in the John Benet Ramsey case, what we see in this person, in that one, how does it apply to my life? How does it apply, what can I learn from this? What cautionary tale comes out of this? And is there like a bad seed in society that is leading to this? Can we expect more of this as well? So, so let me just give you an example of a bit of a different way of thinking about that. I had a situation where very recently I was told to get rid of my dog, and he's actually just run out the room now. And that was almost like a mystery. It was like, who is upset? Why is that person upset? What's the agenda? What's the motive? What's the strategy? And so what I was, obviously, because I'm a true crime writer, what you tend to kind of gravitate towards is almost applying that sort of criminal psychology, that how can I put it, not just criminal psychology, but the true crime thing to civil society. So someone wants to get rid of your dog, wants you to get rid of your dog, and now you're thinking, who's got a motive here? What's going on? And I'll tell you why there's a risk in applying this to civil society, and that is, I have a bias, I have a cognitive bias to people that I know, people that I'm familiar with, and also towards people that I may not be particularly, well, you don't necessarily have a great relationship with certain people. And so when you're trying to do this criminal analysis in a civil situation, someone's just not happy with your dog, you tend to think, wow, I think it's that person that I'm not sure if they like me, or that person that I'm not sure if I like them. And that's not a very good approach. How you want to approach it is evidence, right? So, yeah, so that they did, Olivia, thanks, that's a great compliment. The best true crime writer. I love seeing my books sort of juxtaposed next to Ayn Rand. I mean, I respect what she's achieved. And so when my books are sort of on the bestseller list opposite hers, it's quite a compliment. But anyway, so long story short, I was told to get rid of the dog. In fact, I was supposed to get rid of him by about a week from now. And I'm not going to go through all the details, but I sort of had a couple of suspects. And I mean, the reason why this was happening was no one had actually come to me and said, we're not happy, or, you hear complaints, or someone knocks on your door and says this is bothering you. So in other words, it's like a mystery. So, it's like someone commits a murder and then they don't tell anybody, obviously. And so with the dog, it was the same thing. Who is so upset about this? And I kind of had a couple of suspects. I had somebody telling me that it was a particular person. And then I thought, is it the person that is being identified, or is it the person who's identifying the other person that it actually is? So almost you could argue that it's almost that scenario you have in the Ramsey case, that, are they legitimately pointing out other suspects, or are they pointing away from themselves, right? So I was kind of wondering, is that going on? Is it this guy that's actually the fly in the ointment kind of thing? Anyway, long story short, I kind of went for a walk with Timmy, and when I came back, this quite old granny, this sort of oldish woman, she sort of worked in a restaurant for many, many years, standing when she was serving customers. And I think because of that, she's sort of got a little bit of I think she's just, worked very hard for a lot of her life. And when I saw her sort of put her arm around her grandchild and sort of scuttle into her home, almost like running away, I thought, that's evidence. That is, there you are seeing actual behavior. And then I sort of reflected that a couple of times Timmy's, even though he was on a leash, he would come very close to the little boy and then he would burst out crying. And so instead of just saying, well, can you just make absolutely sure he doesn't get closer than a meter or whatever, she then complained around the corner kind of thing. Do you know what I'm saying? So in a way, she had a legitimate complaint. The only other thing is, Timmy's a good-natured dog, and maybe it's a good thing for a little boy to learn not to be afraid of little dogs. But I can understand that she might also feel intimidated, complaining directly. What's the reaction going to be, or something like that. So that's just a little story I wanted to tell you. I'm just saying you can't always apply true crime psychology to civil things, because you are in the story and you're going to have your own bias, and that's why it's, I think, quite hard for people who are in these cases. So if it's Chris Watts, the people who are in those cases to see the woods for the trees kind of thing. Okay. Marty Furlong, thanks very much, from Canada. It's funny, it appears on my phone first and then there's a delay on the computer. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Stephanie says, yeah, the way that I agree, the way that what was gone about isn't very respectful. And I think we're talking about the same thing. That's almost like dishonesty. I'm very upset about this. I want you to get rid of your dog, but I'm not going to tell you who it is or what the thing is. And obviously, when I figured out what was going on, I was like, to keep my dog on a leash and to make sure he doesn't go anywhere near that child, not difficult for me to do. I don't have a problem with it. If it's such a big deal that, I'll do it. Katie Kajula, hi from Finland. Sonic Zakarin, good to see you live. Got to tell you, it was stressful, but I am happy that I've figured out the getting your screen, the widescreen format. It really wasn't rocket science, but when you press for time, it's a little bit difficult. And I just want to quickly touch on Chris Watts before we get to John Benet Ramsey. What do you guys think about the Watts case? Is there still a lot to talk about? Is it in limbo? Is it in legal limbo? You think things are happening? There seems to be a lot of chatter around it, but in terms of actual things happening, I don't know whether much is happening. I did have a comment from someone here about the Watts case. It's from Debbie McClellan. I'm just going to read it quickly. She says, I would like some clarity around the rumor that Nicole Kessinger had the key to Chris Watts' house and visited his house around September 24th of 2018 while nobody was there. Also, if the rumor was true that Nicole Kessinger possibly left her clothing in a bag. And she says, I'm open to any interpretation of what this could mean, etc., etc. So let me just answer that in two ways. The first point is, I think, for me, the most significant thing about a key is Chris Watts getting the key from Nicole Kessinger. This is rumored. This is, I think, what was mentioned in letters from Christopher. So I don't know whether it's true, but I do suspect that it might be true, is that a key was handed over on August the 8th, I think, the day of the ultrasound. And I think that legitimately made him think their relationship is kind of going to a whole new level, and he's going to need to take action. He's going to need to do something drastic. And I think in a way he panicked in two ways. He sort of panicked that, wow, I'm in love with this person, she's in love with me, it's happening. And he also panicked in terms of, my wife's pregnant, she's going to be back forever, and I need to sort this out, And so that to me is far more significant. Whether Nicole Kessinger had the key, can I tell you something? If she had the key, I don't think it's a big deal, because they were in an affair for 5 or 6 weeks. So if she had the key, so what? If you're trying to make the whole thing about that she's an accessory, I think I find that a very tired I know a lot of people get excited about it, and one channel has basically formed its entirety around that idea virtually. But I find that whole thing kind of laughable. And one of the things that's laughable about that is if Nicole Kissinger was so committed to this, so she's so committed to being involved, why did she drop Chris Watts like immediately? She was like, the minute she found out what was going on, she went to the FBI and then it was over. They never communicated again. It's over. It's not like they're still having a relationship and, they both moved on. So I just find that a bit of a strange thing, that where you say they were so committed that you would get involved in a crime. Well, then why did the commitment end virtually immediately? I must say this is not really what I wanted to get into in this live. I don't really want to be talking about this. Alicia says, I had no idea all this YouTube drama went on with this case and all the people fighting back and forth. I agree with that I find the psychology quite fascinating, but almost like watching a train crash. You sort of see certain personalities that get consumed by the drama, and they also try to make the drama even greater. And is that good for anyone? I mean, maybe it's good to make some money, but is it good for people to be you have the tail wag the dog kind of thing? Danielle says, I finally made it. Hello, Nick. Okay. I know a couple of you have heard about the live chats, and then there's one here and one there, and you've missed them. So it's good to see you here, Danielle. Kim Amon says, do you think Watts has an IQ of over 140? No, I don't. I must say in the beginning, I thought that people have underestimated Chris Watts, and now I think we've all overestimated him quite a lot. Consumed by the drama. Connie Lukens. Unfortunately, many other true crime stories we should be concentrating on, not Watts. There were a couple of people, there are a lot of people on Patreon, my Patreon, who are very into Chris Watts, and I was a little bit worried when without really asking for a lot of permission, I just basically went into the John Bonet thing, and a lot of them just got on board immediately just because it is such a fascinating thing. And the people in the John Bonet Ramsey case are much more fully fledged characters. It's there's so much intrigue in that case, it's incredible. And bear in mind that is minus the discovery, minus cell phone records, minus bank statements, minus, as I say, minus the discovery. There's just so much. The media narrative alone is incredible. Tiffy Jacks, hi TCRS, hello. Annie Thomas, have you ever seen a Monet painting in person? That's a difficult question. I was at a gallery in the Netherlands. I was kind of focused on Van Gogh when I was there. I seem to remember actually photographing Monet's name. So I think I did see a Monet. Monets are very kind of watery and whitewashed in a way. They're kind of, it's almost like looking through a window that's foggy. I think I've seen a Monet. I'm sorry to actually not be able to say absolutely yes or no, but I was at a gallery in the Netherlands. I went to the Van Gogh Museum, but there was another gallery, and I think I saw a Monet there, but we were a little bit pressed for time. Leanne Devlin, what are your thoughts on Oscar Pistorius? Well, a lot of people think that he didn't know that Reva was behind the door and that there wasn't an argument. I'm not sure if I agree with that. Mystery Baker says, I'm loving your series on the Ramsey case. Pleasure. We still got about 11 episodes to go, and we thought the last one was quite interesting, for lack of a better word. I think the next one's going to be even more interesting. let's just move on a little bit. Stephanie left a message on Patreon. I'm just going to respond to her question. And her question is there evidence of Burke having a friend over with him on Christmas night? And so my response to that is there's virtually no evidence that Burke had a friend over. There is a little bit of circumstantial things of the Ramseys going to the Steins on their very last stop. And Burke actually got out of the car because one of his best friends is the Stein, Doug Stein. So that's quite interesting that their last stop was that particular stop. Something else, which I wouldn't say that's evidence, but it's certainly something to consider, is they found what appeared to be bicycle tracks in the snow. Now, that could either mean that John Bonet made them, or that Burke made them, or that both of them made them, or that a whole bunch of people made them. But I do think that it's quite interesting that they found bicycle tracks in the snow, and I've made quite a big deal of the bicycle narrative, and that's kind of mystified a lot of people. They've been quite upset, or I don't understand why you're paying so much attention to that, but I think that is quite interesting. That also, I think the Stein residence is only like a 0.4 miles from the Ramsey home, so theoretically you could walk over or cycle over whenever, so I think that's quite interesting. Let's see. Donnie Springer, they don't stick to the evidence. Janae, where's that lockdown? Stephanie. Okay. Chris C says, I'm shocked about the commando knot. It is quite kind of an epiphany if you're seeing it for the first time. Danielle says, I'd love for you to do a series on the Jodi Arias case. I might actually do that. What I'm thinking of doing is, do you guys know in February there's a documentary, If I Can't Have You, on Discovery Plus on Jodi Arias, right? So I was thinking of doing the first audiobook in that 6-part series, Audacity. Jodi Arias spent 18 days on the stand, and it's just like unprecedented, and it wasn't just the length of the time, but what she actually said on the stand. It was like a soapy, but just crazy and horrifying and ridiculous at the same time. So I might sort of do that as an audiobook. To be honest, I've got to refresh my memory, and I've got to get hold of all the, I probably have a better handle on the Ramsey case in that sense than the Jodi Arias case. You need a bit of a refresher to kind of get the ball rolling. Stephanie, what was Annie Thomas's question? I've just missed another question. Firefly says, I needed therapy after she got off that stand. Yeah. No, it certainly is almost infuriating. Anne Chapman, so this I think is quite a good question. Do you ever think the John Bonet Ramsey case will be solved? And is it possible that something will slip through the tight lid of the case? And in my opinion, the case is already solved. It's not officially solved, but in my opinion, it is already solved. I feel the same way about the Madeleine McCann case. So in the Ramsey case, if you want to go down the route of an intruder, it will never be solved. You can always identify another intruder. If you want to look through billions of people with a DNA sample that I don't believe actually relates to, I don't believe it's the profile of one individual, which means you're going to be searching for somebody till the end of time and never find them. So if you want to go down that route, then expect the case not to be solved. In the Madeleine McCann case, it was my opinion, if you want to go down the abductor thing, it's the same thing. It's going to not be resolved. It's a little bit like, and again, it's just my opinion, it's a little bit like the O.J. Simpson case where you say, well, O.J. didn't do it, so who did it? Well, so it's an unsolved case. Does that make sense? I think there's a certain amount of evidence and you've got to look at it. And then there's certain reasons why we can't, or why investigators can't do that. Does that make sense? Okay. Mama Don says, what's your opinion on the little red heart found on John Bonet's palm? I never hear anyone talk about that. That's also a great question. That also goes into child psychology. First of all, you've got, like you say, who is the author of the ransom note? Who is the artist responsible for that heart? And I somehow don't think it's John Bonet. It could be her, could also be her mother. I don't think it's a brother. And so who else could it be? And we know that on the 23rd of December, John Bonet was upset because she didn't feel pretty. She was crying. And so it's possible that one of the children at that birthday party liked her, or she liked that person. And it could have been a girl, it could have been a friend. Little girls might say to one another, we are friends, and so I love you. I don't know if that's far-fetched, but anyway, it could just be a statement of friendship. But it would be interesting to know who that was directed to, and I think that is a very important part of what we're talking about here. Lisa Wilson, I thought they found Madeleine's body along with a guy confessing. Yeah, I don't think that Bruckner is a legitimate witness, just like all the others. If he was, maybe you'd want to go and question him, and maybe you'd want to arrest him, and maybe you'd stand trial, and none of those things seem to be happening. Chrissy Lee, this is why I love TCRS content. You bring up things that I would never think of. Yeah, that is my job, to think about this stuff a lot. Okay, so let's just see if there's another question here. So this is from Denise, and she sent this because she said she can't make the live on Sunday. And she said, I've got a couple of questions. She said, the morning of the 26th, while the red herring ransom note was still in play, John Ramsey was said to be trying to book a flight, get out of Dodge kind of thing. This is what she's writing. But is it possible you're speaking with a pilot to have his adult children brought to them? It seems the two adult children got to Boulder pretty fast, considering it was supposed to be the opposite, the four Ramseys traveling to be with them that day. That's kind of an interesting question. The answer is, you need to bear in mind that if John Bonet hadn't died when she died, what would have happened that morning is that the family would have gotten on a plane. I'm not quite sure if it was John Ramsey's plane. I know John Ramsey had two planes. I don't know if that plane was his plane, but I think it was a chartered plane, and the pilot, I believe, was Mike Archuleta. And so he's calling his pilot to, this is something that we know from Steve Thomas. Steve Thomas said something like this, that he called his pilot and he kind of had an important meeting. That is something that they overheard was being said. And then they had to stop him and say, look, you can't leave. So it seems like, I don't know, the meeting that John was talking about doesn't seem to make too much sense, because he was originally going to spend Christmas with his children. I don't know whether he had a business meeting as part of that. Somehow I doubt it, but that was the story that came with that. So the whole thing that did John just call to arrange his adult children, well, we know from John Andrew that I don't know if they were on board the plane or they were at an airport. I think they were flying from Atlanta, I think, to Michigan. That was what they were supposed to do, but they were actually already at the airport, and then they just changed the flight to Boulder. That was why they got there so quickly. So there's not really much mystery around that aspect. Then another question from Denise: while your first child is apparently kidnapped, what parent in their right mind allows the second child to leave their side? Very good point, and exactly the same in the Madeleine McCann case. Then third question: why did the prosecution get away with denying more intensive interviewing of Melody? That's a good question. There's quite a lot to say about that. I'd like to answer that with information in front of me, but as far as I recall, someone from the district attorney's office, as I recall, kind of blocked that. So that the police wanted to talk to her and they didn't want that to happen. Something else that's quite interesting with Melody Stanton is I seem to remember that she told someone that she heard something, and then that person relayed the message. She didn't actually contact the police, as far as I recall. And then I think there's a possibility that she changed her story, that she wasn't sure about it to begin with. So that whole thing is very unfortunate. That whole, can you rely on that to begin with? Hof Rutter, thank you for your $4.99. Victoria, as well. Is that a doggy there? Yes. Thanks, Victoria. Victoria Petrovich Hola. Am I saying it right? Victoria actually sent a very nice picture of herself wearing a Does That Make Sense t-shirt, a purple t-shirt. I've actually got some more people wearing merch that I need to post. I just haven't gotten around to it. Bonnie Mae Cathers joined us. Annie Thomas, do you think they'll ever release the entire grand jury report in the Ramsey case? No. I don't think they're going to release any more in the Watts case either. In these cases, you tend to have the bulk of the information released early-ish on, so in the first 6 months, say, or so, or the first year, and then anything else that comes out after that is little dribs and drabs or trickle. So what you get after that first release tends to be it, okay? There are exceptions, because in the Ramsey case, we didn't actually know what the grand jury decided, and then there was this reveal later on that shocked everybody. And of course, I think between the time that the grand jury indictments were made public, so between that time and earlier, the Ramseys were officially exonerated, and this whole DNA myth, as far as I'm concerned, came into being. So it's quite interesting. Shelley Jakes, I looked at the John Bonet natal chart. I've just lost your comment. What is a natal chart? Is that what the pediatrician says? So Deanna says, how can you have a meeting when Christmas in Michigan, then straight to the Disney cruise? So, it's possible that they were going to have a Christmas thing, but that there would be some kind of business meeting in Michigan. John was traveling all the time, but it does seem unlikely, doesn't it? So Mayor Om says, if people use SA, it narrows it down. I'm not quite sure what that means, okay? So what I tried to talk about a little bit in the previous episode most of you guys on YouTube wouldn't have seen it because the important part was on Patreon, but it was basically trying to, in the same way that you have Patsy and John Bonet and that whole pageant side of things, very fleshed out. The photo shoots, the dresses, the people involved, like, is it Pam Griffin? The people involved in the pageants and that whole psychology. But what about the guys in the story? What about John and Burke? What about their interests? What about the sort of, the girls would buy dresses and tiaras and makeup and whatnot. What would the guys buy? What would be their interest? And I think that's a part of the story that no one seems to know about or care about or be talking about. You have endless documentaries and it doesn't seem to feature. So I see a couple of messages are being deleted and reviewed. Marty asked, did Burke Ramsey ever marry? As far as I know, he didn't. I could be wrong. Is he currently working? As far as I know, he works in computers, in IT, and I think he's able to work from home, but I'm not 100% sure of that. I know at some point I had some information, but that was in 2016, so I don't know if that's changed. Okay, so are there any more questions on the Ramsey case? Olivia Voss, thank you very much, from Australia. Any more questions on the John Benet Ramsey case? So one thing I want to talk about, just maybe before we move on, if there are any more questions, I'll come back to it. But I'm kind of flabbergasted that there's been a new photo. It hasn't been released. It's not like they sort of announced, okay, there's a new photo. But a really vigilant Ramsey follower, a guy who analyzes it, Cotton Star, that's his avatar, he actually caught this image, and it was from a number of photos sort of lying on a desk that appeared in the Discovery Plus episode. And I was just fascinated by this photo. We see John Bonet actually sitting on a bicycle over Christmas. As I said, I don't know whether anyone noticed or cared about or studied the bicycle narrative in the John Bonet Ramsey case. I certainly did, especially in the Craven Silence trilogy. And so seeing that picture now in 2021, for me, is crazy. It's crazy that that particular picture is out there. And it's interesting that John Bonet is sitting on her bike and then Burke is just standing beside her. And it would be really interesting to see all the photos from Christmas. There are so few that we see. It's the same with the Madeleine McCann case. Where are the photos of their holiday? What happened to them? Why can't we see them? And I think, if you could see them, you would see what clothing they were wearing and get the vibe from the family. Who's crying? Who's happy? Where's this person? What are they eating? Who are they playing with? Who's in the area? And you just get perhaps certain clues and ideas that you don't without those photos. Q says, press the like button. Okay. Anna Cat says, who wrote the ransom note? I must say, when I hear that, I sort of wonder, is that a genuine question? Are there people who aren't sure about that? Like, is it a trick question? Do you know what I'm saying? Isn't it fairly obvious? Like, isn't it fairly obvious who probably wrote it? Yeah, Brenda Leyland, that's true. Okay, so do you guys know about the photo that I'm talking about? If you don't, go head on to crimerocket2.com and I'll put that photo up there. It's just a photo of the Ramsey Christmas that many of us haven't seen before. So Dawna May says, can you do a YouTube of how to have a book published? Maybe on creating a YouTube presence. I've kind of gone down that road, Dawna, and I didn't get a lot of interest in it. I actually have a book on writing for Kindle. Let's see if I don't know if I can find it here for now. If you just Google on writing for Kindle and my name and Amazon, you'll probably find it. And that just is a bit of behind the scenes on my journey writing books. Half Ratter says, Nick is as good as Columbo. Thanks. I think the real test of that is when you come to a case that you come brand new to it as the first investigator, and then what are you able to do with information? That's the real test. I think it's quite easy to ride on the backs of other detectives and other people doing interrogations and so on, you know. I wouldn't mind the opportunity though. I wouldn't mind being in a situation where justice needs to be done and someone is required to focus on a case, spend time on it, and I'd be prepared to do that in the right situation. Okay, so I think that's it for John Benet Ramsey. Like I said, there's still about 11 episodes to go, and I can assure you that the next 10 or so are going to be pretty compelling. As I said, I'm going to go into the Ramseys going onto CNN, talking to Larry King, talking to Barbara Walters, talking to Larry King again, the lie detector narrative, all that kind of thing. I've actually invited Cotton Star to guest narrate the part about the DNA, and I think he's still thinking about it. So maybe you should just say to him here, please, or something like that. We'll see what he does. He did guest blog a post about. Anyway, let's move on from that. Okay, so I mentioned Jodi Arias. I've written or co-written 6 books on the Arias case: Audacity, Mendacity, Authenticity, Obscenity, and Obscurity. Is that 5? I don't know if I've written 5 or 6, but it's somewhere around there. And what I really like about the Jodi Arias case is it's got a thing about it that's a little bit like the Chris Watts case. There's intrigue, but in a way it's quite easy to see certain things and easy to sort of get to know. You get to know Jodi Arias quite well as a true crime character, which I think is quite interesting. In the same way that I think we've gotten to know Chris Watts quite well as a person, although I still feel he's a little bit misunderstood still. If Chris Watts went to trial and he testified, I think we'd get to know him even better. So Steph G says, I have 2 questions. Okay, Steph, I'm waiting. Steph G. Okay, so I was waiting for one particular set of questions. I don't know if they're still being delayed. Do you guys want to see Timmy in the meantime? I don't know if you can see him down there. You see him? Timmy. That's, to me, it's a little bit out for the count. I think he's a little bit miserable because he hasn't gone for a walk today. Today was extremely hot, and then it rained, and then it rained again. So I think he's a little bit miserable. But yeah, I must say, when I found out that I was going to have to get rid of him, I realized how much I loved him. I realized how much I'd gotten attached to him in about 6 months. I mean, Timmy's been a handful. There's been a lot of, if you imagine a baby, there's been some pretty nightmarish and kind of things that you want to not remember. Things regarding bodily fluids and cleaning things up and smells and so on. But he's definitely been very good for me. I think very good for, because true crime can be quite dark. And I can't think of anything lighter than a puppy, anything more spirited and lively and full of life than a puppy. And he loves people. He's very friendly. He's actually a very good-natured dog. Very good-natured dog. He's even a good-natured dog with cats. And I've actually recently introduced him to a kitten. I actually shot some video of him with a cat. And then unfortunately it didn't, what he was doing ended when he jumped off the chair. So I'd love you to, Corin Levi says you must fight for Timmy. I have, and it's done. So I suppose I should end that conjecture just to say that I got a letter saying that I can keep him and that it's conditional on that, and I'm obviously happy to honor that. So Timmy is safe. He is safe now. So let me be explicit about that. Timmy is safe. Okay. Okay, so Starlight says something about cameras in the Ramsey home above, not answered. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. There were somewhere around 2, 3, or 4 cameras. So John had, I think, a Pentax, and he also had a video camera. And then there was also another camera that was possibly a children's camera or a disposable camera or an Instamax or something like that downstairs. And then there was also somebody who set up, I don't know if it was eavesdropping cameras, but Steve Thomas complained about that I think he found a camera setup that was set up by, it's difficult to say who set that up, but somebody set it up without his knowledge, which would have allowed someone to know what law enforcement thought about what was going on. That's in his book. I'm a little bit fuzzy on it, but that is something that he mentioned. Obviously, that surveillance happened after the crime happened. Firefly says, what do you think drove Jodi over the edge? Jealousy. I think she saw a life with Travis. I think she gave up a lot for him in her mind. I think she felt literally like what this documentary is titled, If I Can't Have You. And you know that Travis was going to go to Cancun with, was it Mimi? And I just think Jodi couldn't stand that thought. I think she was just very jealous. But besides other things, I think she was also someone capable of getting really angry and, possessive sort of person. But I do think that her love for Travis, I think she loved Travis, but it became a very obsessive, compulsive, desperate love, Marty makes an interesting point. She says it was revenge. That's also possible. But I think you've got to ask revenge for what? Like, what did Travis do to her? She might have felt humiliated, or she may have felt that he took advantage or something. So Christy says, does anyone know how difficult it is to fight if you have a service guide dog in a place that doesn't want pets? Apparently you should be able to keep a service dog where you're not allowed to keep pets. That is, but in any scenario you can kind of ask for reasonable permission, if that makes sense. Okay, well, we've been at this for 55 minutes. I don't feel like I've covered that much on JonBenet Ramsey. I hope I'm not missing your questions. Someone here said, Donna May says he rejected her. Yes, although he didn't on the day that he was murdered. I mean, he actually slept with her just before she was murdered. So I think you're right broadly that he did reject her. But if you think about it in another way, the fact that he slept with her, doesn't that show that he was still susceptible to her? It's not the right word. He was still open to perhaps being influenced to but I think Jodi probably wanted to marry him, and in that sense she definitely was rejected, kind of thing. Someone was going to ask two questions. I just don't see them. If you posted them, just post them again. Okay, so let's move on a little bit to Laurie Vallow. So, Nick, I'm wondering why the interruption with the pineapple eating to the end situation. Okay, so I've got to say, I don't... Oh, wow, you've got a Great Dane. Okay, do you miss him? I find that a very simplistic thing that Burke was eating pineapple, JonBenet took a piece out of it, and then there was this supposed incident. Because what about the sexual narrative? I mean, where does that come from? And also, where's the garrote in the story? Where's the cord around her neck and the cords around her hands? So that doesn't explain that at all. So I'm sorry, I find that very simplistic and very unconvincing. And frankly, when I watched that CBS documentary and all the experts were nodding, I was kind of appalled that you have all these experts nodding to something that was, for me, not very, like true crime Boeing compared to a true crime rocket, just not quite flying, the whole story. That was just my opinion of that. If you're interested in that opinion, I wrote a blog post, Why the Mainstream Theory is Still Full of Crap, and you can Google that. So Google that title and JonBenet, and you'll probably be able to read it, and you can get my thoughts on that. Shelley says the pineapple was a red herring. I don't know if that's strictly true. So, I mean, I don't think it's like the smoking gun, but the pineapple is important because it shows that she didn't just go to sleep. That I don't actually believe JonBenet did go to sleep or that she was put to bed, but the pineapple shows that she was still awake at night eating something, and that contradicts the intruder narrative, that part of the intruder narrative. I'm looking for, someone says, good morning, people. Where are you, Sonia? Natalie says, I heard Mrs. Ramsey was a tad rough with her. Donnie Springer. I don't agree with that. Barbara Wickstead on JonBenet, the mystery 911 call a few days earlier. It's difficult to say what happened there, but something did happen. And it's possible that whatever happened on the 23rd repeated itself. So should we move on to Laurie Vallow, or are you guys done with questions? We're already at the hour mark. I must say this hour for me went by very quickly. Diane says, do you agree it was an accident? That's quite difficult to say in a yes or no answer. I think it was not, I think the person who killed JonBenet didn't intend to kill her. I also wouldn't say that it was entirely accidental. It was, I wouldn't quite go that far. Someone left a really good comment here. Okay, so someone said, Anne said, who is the Boy Scout, John Andrew or Burke? John Ramsey was an Eagle Scout, John Andrew was also, and Burke was a Cub Scout. So all three of them were. Stephanie says, someone wants to know if urine-soaked underwear were found in JonBenet's room and if her bed sheets were urine-stained. It's quite an interesting question. I would rather not answer it. I'm going to answer it, but I'd rather not, because I'd rather have the information in front of me. But what I can tell you off the top of my head from memory is that they didn't find urine in her bed. So it was as if her bed wasn't wet that night. That's also why I find the whole theory a bit silly, to be honest. I could be wrong. I may have missed something. I think there was something about a sheet that is part of the bedding wasn't there or may not have been there. So it's possible that it was wet and it was removed, or it's possible that it's from a couple of days earlier. That's the other thing is, even if JonBenet's, there was urine in her bed, it could have been from a day earlier. I think what's more important, I'm not saying that's unimportant, but what's more important is there was urine on JonBenet's body when they found her. So, and I don't think that is associated with her wetting the bed. I think that is associated with a similar thing happened to Shanann Watts after she died. It's a little bit different though. I don't think people think that when Shanann died that it was urine that was discharged. I don't think it was. I think it was excrement, and that was what was found in the pillowcase. In JonBenet's case, it was urine. I also think that's quite significant. It probably suggests that she drank something at the same time that she ate something, if you know what I'm getting at. Catherine says something about that's not accurate. I'm not sure who you're referring to. Okay, you must realize I can't talk too explicitly about certain things. They're quite sensitive, and also I'd rather talk about those things with the information in front of me, some of the very sensitive stuff. So I hope you can understand that. When I do my YouTube videos, the episodes, I do try and back as much up as I can with all the narratives that are out there. The books by the Ramseys themselves, by the detectives, by Paula Woodward, by Lawrence Schiller, and of course the books that were sort of written but never made it, like the Bonita Papers. Linda Hoffman Pugh also started writing something, and so on. Donnie, I'm not sure if that's accurate. Renee Baker Carter, that's true. Deanna Ludwig says, I don't really want to get into that except to say that and a lot of people don't understand me or understand the fine line that I draw. So, you'll hear a lot of people saying that there was abuse, JonBenet was sexually abused, or JonBenet was sexually assaulted. and I don't agree with those terms. And I think some people get very upset by that and say, how dare you? But I don't think those are actually the appropriate terms for what we're talking about. I'd like to explain what I mean by that, but it's just not the right place to do that. And, people will get very upset saying, well, what else can it be, this and this and this. I prefer the term sexual interference. And I think you've got to consider the possibility that you can have a certain amount of, like, I don't really want to get into it. It's too much of a minefield. I was just thinking of, you can have a certain amount of, no, rather just not touch on that. Okay, so Donna May, you said, I have a lead for you. Have I lost it now? Can't quite. Donna May said, I have a lead for you, but I've lost the comment. Something about. So Sue Cooper says, have you come across evidence in any cases you have shared with the authorities? I've shared information with prosecutors, and I guess I can think of 3 prosecutors where I actually was at trial. I was sitting in court, and I approached the prosecutors and spoke to them, and they acted on my information. I guess I can say that. A lot of the cases that I cover are after the fact, so there's not much you can do in that case. There was something in the John Benet Ramsey case that I remember we found, and then I think we contacted, I think it was Charlie Brennan. I can't remember who we contacted, but we did contact someone there. Often we get lost, or I get lost in the cacophony of crazy people. So they think, if you say something, they think, well, you're just another one of the crazy people. So it's not very easy saying certain things. What was quite interesting is in the one case, I was tweeting about the case, so as it was happening, and the wife of the prosecutor saw the tweets and alerted the prosecutor to it, and the prosecutor then contacted me, and then we met and we discussed certain things. And what was quite interesting was I actually heard the judge talking about, I can't quite remember if it was a coincidence that she was saying something that I mentioned, or whether it was something that was stated in trial because I'd said it. But I certainly felt very vindicated and validated in that moment, kind of privately. It's difficult to be, that case is sort of ongoing, so I can't be too explicit about it. I am intending to write about it, but I'm still waiting for the final developments in that case. Okay, so thanks, Stephanie. Joseph Ryan's sister as a YouTube channel. Okay, that's interesting. 12-step woman, $4.99. Thank you for that. Maya Om said something that's actually hidden, but she's talking about excrement in the Ramsey case. I think I'm just going to move on from that to Laurie Vallow, just because we're at 70 minutes already. Basically, have you guys noticed what's been happening in the Laurie Vallow case? That I think is going to be, potentially can be a huge case. I think it's already gathering momentum. I think the Chris Watts case is sort of, it's fizzling away, the Chris Watts case. And unless he gets an appeal, which I really don't think he does, I think people are going to start turning to another case, and it might be Laurie Vallow. I think that trial might be quite incredible. But what's quite interesting in the Laurie Vallow case, Joseph Ryan, his death has been found due to natural causes, which I think is, I don't know if I'm misinterpreting or remembering incorrectly, but I seem to remember that they spoke about they were going to investigate his death way back, almost like a year ago, and they've only now just established that officially he's died of natural causes. I would love to know what the toxicology is there, but 14 years after he was married to Laurie, he died of a heart attack. And Alex Cox, he had blood clots, he was gasping, and you also have a kind of a heart attack-like scenario there. Olga says, "You are amazing." Wow, that's nice to see and to hear. Thanks, Olga. Just a nice compliment there. No, I appreciate that. I must say I'm very grateful to the folks on Patreon. It's really nice having a community there where people are, for the most part, civilized or civil and well-behaved and kind, not just kind to me, but kind to one another. So I really appreciate that. Stephanie, you're a trooper. Thanks for thanking Olga as well. So Snorky says, so what if Watts files an appeal? A new trial won't get him free. Well, if he does get an appeal, he might get something like the possibility of parole. I think it's very interesting the difference between the Chris Watts case and the Scott Peterson case. It shows you what's possible, that you can be on death row and then potentially, who knows what's going to happen with Scott Peterson. That's also happening this year and should be very interesting. So Danielle asks, why are they charging Laurie and Chad together? Because they are facing similar charges, first of all. Second of all, it kind of saves the court time. Do you know what I mean? It saves them time to sort of say, okay, well, you did this with these circumstances. Bear in mind, Laurie and Chad both went to Hawaii and were married, and lots of things were common with them. Laurel Chisholm, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So it makes sense from the point of view of not wasting the court's time in terms of going through the same thing again, right? The other thing is you could have a very tricky legal scenario where you have one trial where the defendant accuses the other one, kind of says, oh, you know why that happened? Because of the other one. And that's not as likely to happen where you have them both sitting in trial together. There's another court case that's similar, and that's the Amanda Knox case, where Amanda and Raffaele they were tried together, whereas that other guy, Rudy Gade, his trial was fast-tracked. But what I'm saying is when you have them together, you can't have the one blaming the other, right? Is Laurie narcissistic? I don't like that term. I don't like using labels in true crime. But the idea that you're a god, the idea that you can say that someone else is a zombie, the idea that you can go and get married in Hawaii and have your little piece of paradise, and someone else is expendable. You might say it's the same thing as the Chris Watts case, but it's a little bit different. This whole thing of it's a little bit different, this thing of the deity aspect, that I'm a god and I'm going to lead 140,000 people to salvation, So I think that is a different thing. Is Stephanie leaving? Heather West, Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Okay, so anything else something else I want to just say about Laurie Vallow is that, so you've got Joseph Ryan supposedly died of natural causes, Alex Cox supposedly of natural causes, and I wouldn't be surprised if they throw everything onto Alex Cox, so they say, can you explain how this happened? Alex did it. Where was JJ and Tylee when blah, blah, blah? Well, Alex did that. And so throw him under the bus. He can't answer for himself. I think another thing that's really interesting is, what about Tammy? What happened to her? Because the circumstances around her death the timing is odd, isn't it? So it's going to be interesting, this trial. There's a lot on the prosecutor's plate, and I'm quite glad that he was able to. The prosecutor was able to stay on the whole thing. Stephanie, thank you very much. Stephanie's always you've been such a generous person, not just with contributions like that, but just with your thoughts and your time and your I don't know, just thank you very much. I appreciate it. Also, thanks to everyone else that's been on this chat. I'm going to try and do it a little bit more often, and I'm going to try and do more that are Patreon only. So so that we can feel comfortable with each other and people that we know, and you also know what we've been talking about. I think I'm going to end off with Alexis Sharkey, half-ratter. Thanks for being here. I appreciate that. Let's stay authentic. Thanks very much. I've got to tell you, when you contribute something like that, if you convert it to local currency here, it's actually quite a lot, and so it's really appreciated. So just on Alexis Sharkey, she was this Instagram influencer, and I must say, I thought that she would become a big case, partly because you have this beautiful woman who is sort of this innocent victim. Not that any victim isn't innocent, but, this beautiful innocent victim, and I don't know, the Alexis Sharkey case doesn't seem to be getting that much traction. I'm not sure why. I don't know if there's not enough interviews going on, but so far there isn't very much. But there is an interesting parallel with Alexis Sharkey and Rebecca Zahau. They're both found naked. I don't know whether it was suggested that Alexis committed suicide, but Rebecca Zahau, it was found by the police that she committed suicide, but it's almost certainly not true. And why on earth would a woman commit suicide outdoors in the nude? Just doesn't make sense. What I think is very interesting with the Alexis Sharkey case is the timing of it around Thanksgiving. And if you look at so many crimes, let's just name a couple. JonBenet Ramsey happens around about Christmas time. Amanda Knox, the murder of Meredith Kercher, happens around Halloween. The death of Teresa Holbach also happened around Halloween. Kelsey Bereth in the Patrick Frazee case disappeared on Thanksgiving. A lot of these crimes happen on these kind of holidays. When did Suzanne Morphew disappear? On Mother's Day. Is that relevant? I think it is. I think that milestones like birthdays and Christmas tend to play on people's perceived sense of what's happening, of where their lives are going or not going. So, I think that's quite interesting. I think it's also part of the key to solving the JonBenet Ramsey case is what changes on Christmas the most for certain people. And I think there's quite a lot in that kind of rhetorical statement. So Heather says emotions can run high on holidays. Absolutely. You realize certain things about yourself and about other people. Debbie McClellan, thank you very much. Just bought the Silver Fox Trilogy. truly excellent books and highly recommend them. Thanks so much, Debbie. Really appreciate that. And I appreciate the thoughts or the questions you sent earlier, Debbie. Thanks very much for that. Marty says, I'm on your second book about Rebecca. Great job. Marty, I was actually, so someone asked earlier, do you ever kind of have an impact on cases on law enforcement or whatever? I don't know if you guys know that a post that I wrote on Nicole Kessinger appeared in the text messages between Nicole Kessinger and Kevin Kovac, where Kevin Kovac said, are you aware of this? And it was I think it was called, Is This the Mystery Mistress? And Nicole Kessinger responded, they're grasping at straws. And of course, it turned out at that time, people didn't know that it was Nicole Kessinger. People didn't know who the mistress was. And I was one of the first to basically say, well, I think it's her. And it turned out to be her. She only came forward in, when was it? Bear in mind all the things that happened. Trent Bolt claimed that it was him. Amanda McMahon said it was her. But, you needed to discern who really was involved with Chris Watts. Anyway, to come back to Marty, the prosecutor in the Rebecca Zahau case and someone else contacted me to ghostwrite their narratives, and I was interested, but I was actually more interested in writing a book with their input and their kind of, how can I put it, so them collaborating in a book rather than me being the invisible author. I'm not averse to doing it. I mean, I'm certainly, after writing 100 books, I'm open to new projects, but I'm not particularly keen on ghostwriting when I feel like I've built a bit of a name for myself and people know me. I don't want to sort of keep my analysis or be asked to put my analysis aside. So I'm hoping to travel to the States at some point, and then maybe I can meet some people and we can renegotiate, or we can find some middle ground. So we'll see. Keo says the Zahau case broke my heart. That is a very heartbreaking case. I mean, it's a heartbreaking case, definitely. Definitely a heartbreaking case. I've written 2 books on that case. I have a third that's in waiting. It's just one of those books that, another case comes along, like the Watts case, and it just, or the Letitia Stark case, and it just rolls over what you were doing at the time. So, and I must say my output in terms of writing is going to drop now. I want to do some other things for a while. Still write, but certainly not at the output that I was doing. 12 Step 7 says, Silver Fox title for why? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Thanks, Bria. Thanks for that. I hope you're doing okay with the gym situation. It's probably going to clear up a bit in the next couple of months, but maybe you've got to adapt in the meantime. So I think we need to start wrapping up. I'll be here maybe for the next 7 minutes to make it a clean 90-minute episode. Okay, so 12-Step Woman says, why did you title it Silver Fox? So the first series, the first 9 books was Two-Face, which I thought worked. But for the last trilogy, I wanted something beyond that. And so Silver Fox is kind of a ironic reference to, someone's asking to see Timmy, but he's right at my feet, so it's difficult to show you. I'm bare feet now, and I can feel him at my feet. I'll pick him up for you guys in a second. What was I saying? Why Silver Fox? So it's kind of an ironic title. I've got to be honest and say, when I thought of that title for the trilogy, I'm not sure that I was thinking of it based on what happened in the very last book. I mean, the last book, in a way, caught me a little bit by surprise. Like, I didn't quite expect it to go the way that it did. But what I will say is that the Silver Fox is something that his co-workers called him, right? They also called him Rain Man. And so I wanted to play with that to some extent. And I also wanted to, I think, address the question, was he a silver fox? Was he not so much good looking, but was he very clever? Was he very crafty? And I think he is quite crafty in some ways, but I don't think he's that clever. I think most people have overestimated how clever he was. And to be honest, I'm quite surprised at what Nicole Kessinger saw in Chris Watts, because she's university educated and she had quite a good job at Anadarko, whereas he was an operator. I think Nicole Kessinger, to answer the question, what did she see in him? I think she may have seen the veneer. She saw the house, the family, and made assumptions from that, and then liked the fact that he was a kind guy. But I don't know, would they have gotten married eventually? It's difficult to say. Somehow I doubt it. Because of this difference in, a major difference between, in my opinion, between Nicole Kessinger and Chris Watts. I think Chris Watts believed in the MLM thing. I didn't think that he did. I actually thought, right in the beginning, I thought the MLM thing might be part of his motive, that he couldn't get Shanann to stop. And so this was a way to force her to stop. And I think I was wrong about that. I think he actually thought Thrive was great all along, whereas I don't think Nicole Kessinger did. I could be wrong about that, because there's rumors that she may have been involved in an MLM to begin with, and someone said this, and I asked for confirmation, and they couldn't provide confirmation. So at this point, that's speculation. But it would explain how Nicole Kessinger may have bumped into Shanann or Chris Watts online before in doing that in person. If they had a similar interest in that respect. I do believe that Nicole Kessinger, that interest in MLM faded away, that she felt it doesn't really work for her. Adriana, you're just in time for like the last 3 minutes, but good to see you here. Adriana from Florida. Mystery Baker says, great live, thank you. We're about to wrap up, so I think I can bring Timmy into the picture. Timmy, come. Timmy, come. He's really relaxed. Timmy, come. Timmy, come. He really doesn't want to get up. I'm going to have to drag him up to show you guys. Miss Jen says, have you looked at the Jeremy Bamber case? No, I haven't. Adriana says, Timmy, where's Timmy? Timmy, come. Where's Timmy? Come, Timmy, come. So he's now standing. Timmy, come. He's right under my chair. Timmy, come. This is crazy. Timmy, come. Come, boy. Timmy, come. Sorry, I don't know how to get. He's right under my chair. What can I do? I suppose I could throw a little bit of water at him, but would you appreciate that? Here he is. He's gotten up. Timmy, come. Oh, there he is. Thank you, Angel. So I don't know if you can see Timmy, as his hair's grown a lot longer. You can see he's very sleepy, right? He actually needs a bit of a shave because his eyebrows are sort of closing his eyes, right? Hey, Timmy. But anyway, so all sorted with Timmy. He isn't going to have to leave. It was quite a shock finding everything out, but he's safe for now, and hopefully safe for the foreseeable future. You can see he's very tired, and I think that the tiredness is because of the heat. It's just really, really, really hot. Hey, Timmy, it's really hot, hey? Yeah, it's actually not late yet. It's 25 to 9. And so it's not late. It's not past his bedtime or anything. I think he's just very, very hot. And I should probably shave him so that he doesn't get so hot. And I must say, this room that we're in is very hot. My office has got air conditioning, and this room is very, very, very hot. So there you go, guys. Thank you to everyone for your contributions, for your questions. Good to see you guys. I'll try and do this again maybe in 2 weeks from now. And I'm planning on doing a Zoom book club very soon. Look how he's licking my hand. Okay. Maybe not. A Zoom book club. So look out for that. For those who are interested in joining our lovely community on Patreon, head on to patreon.com/TCRS. Look out for the next episode of the John Bonet series, episode 40, I think. That's going to be a good one. And the next 10 episodes as well. I'm going to, towards the last 5, I'm going to be re-narrating the Craven Silence audiobook. Jimmy. Okay, so that's it, everybody. Good to see you guys, and I'll see you guys again soon. Take care. Okay, ciao.